Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to our session today, Beyond the Headlines, Why Patrons Use News. We're so happy to have so many of you joining us today. We are at the top of the hour, and as people continue to come in, we welcome them too. We've had a great turnout. Librarians from across the country, I think more than 100 are registered to join us today. So thank you so much for spending part of your day with us. My name is Catherine Bergerson. I am the Vice President of Marketing at NewsBank, joined by my colleague, Diane Sheldon-Koo, who is the Public Library Sales Director. We again welcome you today, and we hope to have sort of a different conversation about the news and why patrons use news. Is news what you think it is? And we hope that you'll find this session intriguing, engaging, educational, and that you have some real concrete ways to connect your patrons with more news resources in the future. So as we get started, just want to let you know that we are recording the session, and you'll receive a follow-up email that will include the recording in it in the next few days. If you have any questions or thoughts you'd like to share, please use, depending on the version of GoToWebinar you have, you may see gray bars that say questions or chat. You can open those up and type them in there, or you may see icons, and to the left of your screen, just click there, type them in, and we will pause and do our best to get to everyone's comments and questions. As we get started, I thought it would be fun to start with a poll. And you know what, I didn't introduce at the beginning, I should have. Behind the scenes is Abby, and so you may hear us call out to her to help us in the background. So thank you, Abby, for being here too. So our poll is, to get going, in addition to current events and local news, what do you think are the topics that patrons are searching the most? It could be climate and natural disasters, affordable energy, perhaps it's the technology industry, AI, social media, online safety, entertainment, which would include do-it-yourself, recipes, puzzles, celebrities, crafting, family history, family research, or perhaps health. So that would include, mental health, medical breakthroughs, caregiving. I'll give you just a moment to answer. And then, Abby, if you could close the poll and we'll take a look at the results. And so we see here that 12% are saying climate, 47% technology, entertainment at 65%, and family history and health tied in at 71%. Well, you are all right. Yes, these are all of the types of news that patrons are searching beyond those daily headlines and local news. It's always interesting to see.
It really is. It is always interesting to see exactly the topics that the patrons are using in news resources. And news, of course, is daily headlines, current events, and sports scores. But that's just a fraction of what people are using in our news sources. Patrons are looking for information that will enhance their life and their lifestyles. These can include puzzles and recipes, do-it-yourself, family history, and health issues, even what's trending in tech, or gift ideas, or crafting. So what is news? What do we find when we look beyond the headlines? Well, we're finding a lot of news is edutainment or infotainment. Everything from restaurant reviews to top 10 lists and celebrity updates. It's information that patrons are using to navigate their lives.
When we talk about trends and how trends are changing, one of the things that we're seeing in our resources is the search habits are beyond the breaking news, that people are searching locally, nationally, and globally. So news that might start in a local community may also have that national impact or even a global impact. and news that might occur around the other side of the world could affect your everyday life. And so if we take a look at it through the lens of the Russia-Ukraine conflict and the impact on gas prices, particularly when they spike, is a big conversation that we know people are talking about. So if we take a look at it through the news lens, you can see we have an article here in Pakistan that discusses the global impact of the crisis, is calling it everyone's crisis. And there's a line in here that says, as a result of the inflation in the energy sector caused by economic volatilities around the globe as a result. And then we see the national impact here on the front page of the USA Today, highlighting how gas prices are putting pressure on our country's dependence on fossil fuels, and how that conversation is changing and taking shape as a result of the crisis and the fossil fuels. Then locally, right in your backyard, you see from Maine an article headlined, Ukraine crisis sends fossil fuels soaring in Maine. And so we're seeing that these trends and what's causing the gas prices to soar is then something that people are really interested in finding out more about, and may not realize it's a result of activity that's going on the other side of the world.
Which leads us to the importance of vetted and credible sources. And this is the biggest reason that patrons rely on news sources for information. News gives firsthand accounts, as a boots on the ground, if you will. It provokes critical thinking and provides facts which give patrons an opportunity to make up their own minds. News clearly labels their opinion and editorial sections in order to avoid misinformation and fake news. It gives deeper analysis of facts as well as the human interest side of a story. News is a valuable alternative to social media. Additionally, it is important to have multiple perspectives for credible sources, because this further aids in understanding a topic from others' points of view. By looking at coverage from different regions of the US or even different countries, patrons are better armed with all the facts, and this helps them make up their own minds. For example, here we're looking at front page story on the same day from newspapers on opposite sides of the world. It's very interesting to see what each considers leading news. To help patrons find alternative perspective, NewsBank offers 40 of the top 50 newspapers in the US, including USA Today, which is the highest circulation rate. Another reason patrons are using news is to connect the past with the present. And they're doing this in multiple ways, from stories on this day compared to 50 years ago, or how ads have changed over time, or how local coverage has changed, and even how a particular topic is covered over time.
That's right. And two of my favorite examples that I love to share is how the past informs the present is an example of a library who did a program about a local baseball team that caught the attention of a patron who also is a podcaster. And so this was at the Erie County Public Library, and they did a program featuring the history of the Erie Pontiacs, which was a local Black baseball team in the 1940s. And the program utilized articles from the news to tell the story and engage patrons. Well, inspired by that presentation, the podcaster used the opening day of baseball season this year to reflect upon the same team and then even reaching more people. So you can see here how she promoted her podcast, the library, and the newspapers that were used on social media, and tying that the opening day of baseball season to a former team in the local community and bring more attention to that historical team. Also, another great example that connecting the past and the present and also enhancing library programs using news is an example from a book club that was telling you recently, they were reading The Exiles. And for those of you who may not know, this is a novel about London moving prisoners to Australia in the early 1800s and the experiences of those prisoners. And the host wanted to give the group a little bit more of a robust experience. And so she looked up news stories from the time or how it was covered even more recently, and getting accounts from the prisoners or actual images inside of the facilities to help bring their conversation to life. And that's really something you could do with any sort of program beyond book clubs. If you're hosting an art exhibit or an author, a craft event, news can help really support and enhance that experience for your patrons.
Yes, and news is as diverse as the patrons you serve. Let's talk about patron groups and how they are using the news. Millennials. So many librarians tell me this is a target group for them. In thinking about millennials, we realize that they are now the parents and those with discretionary income, which is why libraries have a strong desire to connect with this group. And according to a recent Associated Press study, millennials as a group consume a large amount of news, both hard news, the headlines, sports, and current events, as well as the edutainment. And here we can see the different perspectives on Megan. Now, parents, regardless of age, turn to news for information on topics like restaurant reviews, children's book reviews, school board news, cyberbullying, and vaping, plus more.
Another group that is really an important audience for news is students. In an effort to build civil discourse and better informed citizens, I'd actually like to share with you, in her words, a librarian in Texas who talks about how she works with students to help build critical users of information.
What drew me to it is that all of our social studies teachers require students to do a current event. So every student takes a turn looking up anything that's going on in the news, but they'll be assigned, it'll have to be either local or national or world. And I always help students print these things out, and every time they're going straight to the internet, and you get all kinds of stuff that isn't helpful. So they'll get advertisements all over it, things that aren't actually news, things that aren't real. And so being able to point them towards Access World News is really helpful, because then they come away with something they can hand in or read and actually get information. So you really do have to have something that has narrowed it down, it's all curated, and then they come away with something that is real, not fake. So that is really important to me. They can look at different points of view, but then they can synthesize it, and then they can come to their own conclusions. I think that's really important, because we want them to be critical users of information.
Obviously, she really sums up the importance of the value of credible news sources from a variety of sources to help teach young people how to evaluate issues and events. And we all know the importance of that in today's world.
We sure do. All right, the senior community is looking for reliable information on a broad range of topics. Everything from cyber hacks and identity theft to recipes and knitting to health. And they're turning to news to do that. In fact, it reminds me of a story that a librarian told me about a patron whose mother had just been diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. This woman had already done the technical research on the disease and was looking for more best practice information, basically just how to get through it. And the librarian showed her NewsBank's topic search, and with just 2 clicks, she was finding relevant articles which she was able to share with her siblings. The librarian told me that this patron was so grateful to the library for having this resource that made such a stressful time more manageable. And then there's the always popular recreation and play. This includes everything from puzzles and horoscopes, top search items, to in-depth stories about arts and cultural events, to comics and obituaries. As you can see, patrons rely on the news for a broad range of reasons.
They certainly do. And, let's pause here for a moment and see what questions are coming in. Just as a quick reminder, you will either see a gray bar that says chat or questions. You open that up and type it in there, or you may see an icon off to the side where you can type your questions in. We'll give everybody a few moments to think about their questions, but we did get one in advance that is one of my favorite topics, and so I was able to prepare for it a bit, and it's about getting the news resources and databases into the hands of more patrons and broadening even those patron groups. And so as a marketing professional, I always like to learn from others, and so I wanted to share some strategies with you that we've seen about how other librarians what other engagement strategies are being used. We like to call it learn from librarians. So the first is get it in the news, get the information out again into the community, remind them about your resources. It could be perhaps, an overview of all of your online databases, or you could do a featured resource of the month. An article is a great way to remind your community about the variety of credible, vetted, aggregated sources that are really packed in that database, and remind them why it's important to have those multiple perspectives. So here you can see 3 articles that were either written and submitted by a library staff member or written by a local reporter. You can see we've got Hopkins County, Mentor Public Library, and my favorite, Burlington County Library, News You Can Trust. So this is just, again, an impactful way to remind the community and how to share that information and remind them about the value of having that database and a resource within your library. I'm also a big fan of reusing the content. So you can virtually use the exact same information that you're writing up for the news to put in your own library's newsletter or perhaps a blog. And if you download this presentation, there's also a download icon, gray bar or icon. Download this presentation. I have links to all of these articles. They're included, and you can use them for a guide for your own library. Number 2 is video views. We know right now that video is the #1 way to engage patrons of all ages, and we have a robust selection of brief 2-minute videos that range from how-to tutorials, so you can learn how to search or how to do an advanced search, how to cite an article, to product overviews that will help just let people know briefly what they could expect inside these news databases. They're available for you to download. We encourage you to use them as links on your website near the resource or on your YouTube channel, electronic newsletters, social media sites. You can see here how Laurel County Library and Washington State Library incorporated several of our videos onto their web pages near the resource. And I also like to share, if you happen to be a customer of Niche Academy, the video training platform, we are also there. We have an academy with Niche, and so you can easily find our videos in the marketplace, and you can just search them and add them into your academy. Say it on social. I don't know if everyone knows this, but NewsBank offers ready-to-use social media posts and graphics to librarians. So to help you enhance what you're putting on your social media. So we are helping to write the posts and the graphics for you to build into your own social media plans. And we have all sorts of posts that range, again, from that info edutainment post, like articles to recipes or origins of lesser known holidays, interesting days of the month, and more. Here you can see some examples from a customer, including Centralia Regional Library District, featured a post that we did during Women's History Month with an article about books and book lists related to that month. In Delaware County, you can see they used our post and graphic just to remind patrons about Access World News and how they can access it on their library's website. Also, Dorset Libraries, here is a post dedicated to Shakespeare Week with additional information, kind of some lesser known facts about Shakespeare. That's kind of fun. And so that's a great way to remind people about the database, get them in, try out an article, and while they're in, they will start to perhaps explore other topics. So please, we encourage you to use our posts as inspiration and create your own, or certainly download them for yourselves. And while I do love to share how other libraries are marketing their resources, I would like to share with you quickly NewsBank's Marketing and Resource Center. If you visit www.newsbank.com, we again have all sorts of these ready-to-use resources, again, ranging from the social media posts. If you click on this icon here, you can download the whole month's worth. You can go back and see what we did in previous months, or you can sign up and we will email you the posts about the third week of each month to help you plan for the next. Also, we have annually a summer reading marketing center that has all sorts of games and activities to help enhance your summer reading plans. That's always popular, along with bookmarks, downloadable posters, the videos, links to webinars. So please, we encourage you to visit the Marketing and Resource Center. And if you aren't the person who's in charge of communications, I encourage you to pass that information along.
Okay, so now that we've learned the different types of news that most interest patrons, I'd love to get your feedback on yet another poll. So please share with us some of the ways you feel that you can add news-based information to your current outreach activities. So these might include the social media, hands-on training, newsletters, both e-newsletters as well as print newsletters, enhancing your web presence, maybe with videos or different graphics, or the press releases. So please share with us. I'll give you a minute to answer the poll. Let's go ahead and close the poll and take a look at the results, see what we see. Look at this, social media, yes, very popular. Everybody loves those social media posts. And librarians are even using those, repurposing that same post that we sent in their newsletter. So that's interesting. So here, hands-on training. So that's really beautiful, 28% there, and then web changes, and maybe even try some of those press releases and see how it goes. So if we can help in any way, we're here to support that for sure. Thank you so much for your responses, and it's always interesting to see what resonates with the session. Catherine, do you have any other questions?
Absolutely, thank you very much for that. I do. I always love to see how we can help and where we can build support for the outreach activities. We do have a few questions. One is about how do I best find articles like the ones you're talking about? I think it's like, how do you really pinpoint that information within the database?
Oh, that's a great question. We would be happy to, if whoever asked that, we're happy to reach out to you separately and schedule a demo with that because that's really powerful. So we're happy to do that for you.
Absolutely, absolutely, yes. And even gather a group, and we'd be happy to walk you through that.
For sure.
A question about avoiding bias? How do you avoid bias in the news sources?
That's a really good question. So NewsBank has an editorial team that evaluates every source that we bring on and license and partner with. NewsBank, as you know, are vetted sources, and that's because of the depth and the breadth of the sources. We have a lot of different perspectives. Again, that's what helps folks get the facts so that they can make up their own minds. It's really a powerful tool to see side by side interests or side by side articles about the same topic.
Yes, letting people just decide for themselves, but being able to trust that our editorial team has worked closely with the sources that we're licensing. We have a question about, is there a way to find out what topics my patrons are searching for?
Oh, that's another great question. Yes, we do work with customers to put together a whole report on what topics your patrons are looking for. So we will definitely reach out to you to help get that information to you.
Wonderful, thank you. I think that wraps up the questions that I see right now. But if you think of something, or please reach out to us with future questions.
Great. Thank you so much, everyone, for going beyond the headlines with us today and discovering the less obvious ways patrons around the country are using news every day.
Yes, thank you so much. Today's session is just one step in our commitment to partnering with you. And again, if you download this presentation, you will have all the links, including those outreach strategies, resources, our contact information, so you can easily find it in the future. As you leave today, you will see a brief survey. Please take a moment to let us know what you thought about today's session and how we can improve in the future. So on behalf of NewsBank, we thank you so much for your time today. Goodbye.